What's up, guys? I hope you all are doing well. I am joined by none other than Mr. Dustin Poirier. I hope you guys know who he is, and I am pumped to have him in my gym here in Colorado. How you doing, buddy? Good?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought that it would be fun because you don't often get two athletes that are fighting to be the best in the world at what they do. Obviously, I do strongman. Dustin is into mixed martial arts, trying to be the best fighter in the world at 155 pounds. Yep. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun to, just kind of go down that road of what got you into fighting, and your path, right? Because I think you grew up in a smaller town, right?
Yeah, Lafayette, Louisiana. I don't know the exact population, but it's not too big of a place. And at the time when I was a child, there wasn't too many superstars or people coming out of there and making it on the worldwide scene, So
Absolutely. So did you have that dream when you were a kid?
Honestly, when I was a kid, I did it. It kind of came slowly later on, through middle school when I started finding boxing and falling in love with boxing.
Yeah.
That I decided to really pursue it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So first was boxing.
Yeah.
Did you do wrestling?
I wrestled before middle school at a private club, probably when I was 10 years old, 11 years old. I did wrestling tournaments in Texas, Louisiana.
Interesting.
Got away from that when I went to middle school and high school. And then when I was about 17, 18, I really started falling in love with boxing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was kind of your first passion was getting into boxing.
Yeah. I didn't even plan to fight mixed martial arts. I planned to box.
That's interesting. So when did you start to kind of step out of that mold, so to speak, like in that small town and start to envision yourself kind of doing bigger things in the world? I mean, did you have that dream as a kid?
Yeah, I wanted to see how far I could take it. I didn't know where I could take it to, but I knew that I was going to do whatever I could to give it my all.
Yeah.
And you know how it is when you start off and you fall in love with something like lifting or fighting, you don't think about it that far, or I didn't anyway. I just thought about it right now. Like, what can I do right now to put myself in the best position to compete with these other guys, to win fights on the amateur circuit. And that's what I did. Surrounded myself with the best guys, and then fought amateur, and then eventually went pro and fought on the local scene in Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, that southern area on the pro circuit there.
Yeah.
Until I finally made it. And whenever I started getting these wins against tougher and tougher competition, that's when things really started turning, and I started getting traction, not only with MMA fans and media, but with my own idea of where I could go. Because I never thought about fighting across the world or being in the UFC. I was just fighting because I love fighting. Yeah. And then when you start having some success, you start thinking this could really be, this could be my actual career.
Yeah, it definitely changes. Like, I know for me as a kid, kind of the same story. It's like a small town kid, and I love basketball. So that was kind of my first love and passion, and I had this dream to play in college. And at that point, there was, like you said, kind of in my hometown, there was nobody really getting out and doing that. So it's kind of a smaller school. You want to go to college, you want to get a scholarship. And I was told multiple times, hey, that's kind of an outlandish dream. You're not going to be able to do that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go put the work in, and I'm going to prove it, right? And so I was always like, that's just kind of what drove me. So I was able to do it. I was able to kind of get out, get that scholarship, get the college taken care of, and play basketball at a higher level. And like you said, you start having some success, and then you start to see doors open. Yeah. And then once those doors start to open, then it made me hungrier to push harder, to work harder. And then I know for me it was kind of like once basketball kind of came to the end of me playing in college, it was I needed another competitive outlet, and I love lifting. And so naturally it was like, I watch World's Strongest Man. I love lifting. I love competing. So let's just go compete. And that's kind of how I jumped into strongman, because I didn't know anybody in the sport. I didn't know anything about it really, other than I watched on TV, and I was like, hey, that looks like a heck of a lot of fun. And so I kind of got into that. So it's interesting. So once you turned pro and you started getting that level, where did you then shift from boxing, or where did you start looking toward MMA?
I started in boxing as well as in mixed martial arts. Once you start winning fights, you just face tougher competition, try to fight the next guy who's next in line, and just fight your way up the ladder till you make it. And along that road, there's always people, once you start getting traction in that, there's always people saying you're not going to do this, or what are you doing? You need to go to college. You need to do this and that and stuff like that. And those things happened to me when I was younger. But, my wife was an anchor through the process. Me and my wife been together for a long time. We've been married 11 years. And I just sat back and thought about everybody who's saying no, all the naysayers. Like, what are they doing? They're clocking in. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're content with that, that's great. Yeah. You have a great life, provide for your family, whatever. But I just wanted something more, and I realized like when you're trying to do something great, it scares people because they just don't understand it.
Yes.
They don't have those same craziness chemicals going in their brain, chasing greatness.
No.
And it just they doubt.
Yes,
but as long as you believe,
I think that's the natural response, right? Is like, especially if you've got people in your circle, so to speak, that see you kind of starting to have success and see you going there and thinking about having that kind of next level that you're going to get to.
Yeah.
A lot of people's natural response is to either doubt or have negativity because they don't want to do it themselves, and they certainly don't want you to do it because then it kind of shows that they're not doing that themselves. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. So you face that, and I know for me I had to change my circle a little bit, and people around you, because I always wanted to have people around me that inspired me, motivated me, and were on board, so to speak, right? And like I knew I could count on them versus dragging me down. So I sacrificed a lot, as I can imagine that you did. There's choices. It's always a choice of, am I going to do this to get better? Or am I going to go have fun?
Yeah.
Right. And I know for me, like I spent a lot of, Friday night, my buddies are like, hey, let's go out. Right. And I'm like, nope, I got to sleep. I got to train in the morning. This is what I'm going to do. And they couldn't see the bigger picture of where I was trying to go, but I could see it very clear. And so it's, I think you're very much on the same page with that. It's like, you have to make these hard choices, and people, I think a lot of times don't think about how much sacrifice you have to make, because I'm sure you have people come up to you now and they're like, man, hey, you're awesome, like you're on this level, but they weren't there at day 1 or day 100 or 200 or 300 or 500 when you were trying to climb your way up, and nobody maybe, or not as many people probably believed in you at that point, but you believed in yourself. And I think that's an interesting thing, because I think there's a lot of people out there nowadays where they want to potentially take that leap of faith, so to speak, and go after something great, whether it's athletically or business-wise or, personally or whatever it might be. And they're scared about it, right? And they're seeking approval. They're seeking approval from other people, and you can't do that.
It's so easy for that noise to seep in, too, and affect what you have planned.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's very easy when it's surrounding you, negativity and doubt. But when I was there, I remember there's a quote that stuck with me when I was a young fighter, amateur. I read something that said, if not me, then who?
Yes.
And I was like, it stuck with me for my whole career till now. So every big challenge I have coming up, I'm like, this guy's got to fight somebody. Somebody's going to beat this guy. Somebody's got to take this challenge. 100%. If not me, then who? So I just kind of rode with that, man.
I said, and I don't know where I picked this up, but it's interesting you say that, because I said to myself, the world's strongest man has to come from somewhere. So why can't it be from small town Colorado?
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't care where you're from. You can do it. So it's crazy that you're saying that same thing. And I thought that very often to myself is you got to come from somewhere. Right. And the guy that's on top is from somewhere. Puts his pants on the exact same way. Has to grind the exact same way. So
in fighting, doing that. Every man bleeds. He bleeds just like me.
100%.
So it's the same mindset. Competing that one-on-one hard competition of leaving it all out there.
Yeah.
You have to have that mindset to compete at the highest level.
Oh, it's crazy. So once you got into MMA, was that a very natural thing, or like coming from a boxing background?
For me, I had a little bit of wrestling, like I said, when I was 10, 11, so I had a little bit of base, but it was a whole new thing, learning techniques and with the jiu-jitsu and even furthering my wrestling skills. Yeah, it's been a constant challenge and a constant growing process, and I think for me to stay on top, I feel like I have to always be a student, and that's what I've done. I've just learned from people. I'm going to learn from you today. I listen, observe, whether it's techniques or even mindsets, the way guys approach training camps, approach fights, break down fighters. I'm kind of just trying to stay open with everything. I don't know it all, and the more I know, the more I realize I don't know it all. And that's the fun part, is being a student.
Yes, it really is, and that's. It's important that you say that, right? Because I have always had that same mentality, and I've kind of thought once I'm done learning, or once I say I know it all, then I'm done getting better.
Yeah.
I'm done, right? Because you have to have that open mindset of I'm always willing to listen and try to learn, but if I have a closed mind and I say I know it all, or I'm better than you, or I'm not going to listen to what this guy has to say, or whoever that might be able to help me, even if it's just this little bit, right? It's. I think that when you talk to guys that are at the top, a lot of guys are confident, very skilled, very hardworking, but they also have that coachability and they have that open mind to be able to take in things, decipher whether it's going to help, and then practically apply it to their sport or whatever their passion is, and then they get better, and so they're constantly getting better. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because
they understand that they have to be a student to continue to progress and get better and evolve with. I'm sure your sport's evolving yearly,
it is,
as well as mixed martial arts is, and we have to stay on top of that curve. And you can't do it if you're not a student. So having that open mind is going to help you everywhere, not only in competition, but in business and just everyday life.
So once you got started there, did you immediately have the goal of being the best?
Yeah.
So you were already, but I mean, you're coming from pro boxing and
no. So I didn't fight professionally boxing.
Okay.
I just trained amateur at gyms, and I actually met some guys who were fighting MMA in Louisiana who were training at a boxing gym. And then I was like, oh, let me check this out. I like this. I'm watching, my son with my dad renting UFC VHSs and stuff like that with Kid Shamrock.
Yes.
So I know what this
Some
is.
Of the old ones. I watched those.
Yeah. So I started doing mixed martial arts, and then, like I said, climbing the ladder. And then once I got to 6-0, I had an opportunity to fight in the WEC, which is a big organization out in Las Vegas that the UFC ended up buying and absorbing all the fighters into their roster. And so I came over from WC when they absorbed the roster to the UFC, and I went on a streak at 145, became a contender, lost a really big pivotal fight that would have put me in place to fight for a belt. And when I lost that fight, I decided to bump up in weight class because I was getting older, and the cut to 145 pounds was just too grueling for me.
It's a crazy cut, is what it sounds like. Getting down there. So I mean, do you think that was just because you were adding some more muscle to your frame, and it was a little bit harder to get there? Yeah,
I think partially just getting older, getting denser, your body composition changes. But another huge part of it was I never lifted. I moved out to South Florida to a professional training camp, where I had a coach for everything. Before, I was kind of doing everything under one roof at a local gym, which was great, and it got me to the highest level. But I needed to branch out after a loss and figure some stuff out and surround myself with people who do this for a living.
So that loss at 145, right, where you were that close. How did you take that? Like, what mentally?
It felt like it was the end of the world.
Yes.
It felt like it was the end of the world, and it's I overthink things too. So I care so much about the work I put in and about being the best, and I know how good I can be if I put it all together. And I just want to show that every time out. So, dude, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
So, do you think? Because I had a very similar thing to that. I in 2010 actually tied. It's the first and only tie in the history of World's Strongest Man. I tied on points at the finish of the contest, and they did a count back, and it was like we were matched on first places, and then he had a second place that I didn't have, so they gave him the title based on that, and it was that was a long plane ride home. It was like a 16-hour plane ride home, and I remember I didn't sleep, but it was a pivotal point in my career because I could have been one of those guys that came this close to winning World's Strongest Man and then never won. Right? And I could have been negative. I could have been very down, which I was not happy, as you can imagine. Same thing. It's like the end of the world at that point. But then I decided that next year I was just going to refocus, get back to training, and come back in and win. But that loss, I mean, because that for me would have been title number 5, which would have been huge. But also my career might have been different if I didn't have that one moment that I had to fight through. So do you feel that way about you too? 100%.
Back in the day in boxing, they used to say a guy wasn't ready to fight for the belt until he lost. Like, losing teaches you something that winning doesn't. And there's big lessons to be learned there. Not that it's not impressive to be an undefeated fighter or undefeated power lifter and to be the best in the world, but there are things that you haven't gone through.
Absolutely.
Adversity teaches a man about himself.
It does.
And over the years, I've been very well acquainted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, there's no way to get to being at the top of the mountain, so to speak, without having to fight some major adversity. And that's why it's interesting to talk about this, because it's like the things that you thought coming up and the things that you had to battle through to get to where you are. I think that's fascinating to me, because I think a lot of people out there don't maybe realize, like at one point we were just the guys that were starting too.
Of course.
Right? And then from there you had to put this work in and have this literally passion and drive and focus to get through all these obstacles.
And you have to see it when no one else does,
Yes. Yep.
All the sacrifices, you just know that one day you're going to have an opportunity where it's going to come together and you're going to show everybody all the years,
So now with bumping over, so you now up in 155, right? And I mean, I would say arguably right now, the number one.
I am the number one, yeah.
Number one ranked.
I'm the number one lightweight fighter in the world.
So, I mean, how good does that feel to say
great.
that after that journey?
It feels great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next then? What's next?
Next is July 10th, Conor McGregor, number 3.
Number three.
Number three. We're 1-1.
Yeah.
A knockout apiece. This one's for all the marbles, man.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So you're getting ready to start your training camp leading up to that?
Yeah, I believe May I'm going to start. It'll give me like a 10-week window. I'm already starting slowly to diet and get my weight down a little bit, just so I'm not far behind when I get off the plane and start training camp.
I love it.
Yeah,
Love
I like to temper myself into the workload. So every week as I'm back home training with my guys at my home team, I push it a little bit more, run a little bit more, diet a little bit more, and
so it's a gradual up.
Oh yeah,
gradual up.
Yeah. I'll burn out if I just show up in Florida and 8 weeks out hitting full speed, ready to go. I got to work my way into this.
It's the same. It's awesome. Like we're having this talk, and you're July 10th. I'm June 15th for World's Strongest Man this year. So it's like that's my next thing that I'm prepping for right now, and it's kind of the same thing. It's a gradual build up every week, so you don't burn out, and your body starts to respond and all that. So going into this training camp, do you sit down and list out different goals? Or, I mean, I'm assuming you already, because this is going to be the third matchup there, you already kind of know the tendencies, you already kind of know what to prepare for, what you could do better. I mean, is that how you lay it out in your head?
Yeah, but at the same time, I need to go back and break down stuff, because there's going to be things I haven't seen before or things that catch my eye now. But me and my coaches sit down. I have milestones throughout camp, whether it's weight or phases of different strength and condition and protocols of sparring and stuff that I do as I've learned the ropes or what my body is able to do over the years. Yeah. Everybody's different. What I do in camp might be completely different for another fighter, but I know this because I have 40-something fights. I've learned it, what works for me.
Not your first rodeo, so to speak. Yeah.
But the first time me and Conor fought, I believe, was 2014.
Okay.
And then we just fought January of this year.
Yep.
So I got some recent footage to break down.
Yep.
Getting ready for the last one, we knew he was going to be completely different than the first time we fought. It was 6 years later, 7 years later.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's it. We go down and start breaking footage down and getting everything together to lay out a solid 9-week training camp.
Gotcha. And is that about where? So you're kind of building up, but at 9 weeks, that's locked down and go time.
Yeah, I like to have at least 9 weeks, and I do that because if I show up to South Florida to start camp 9 weeks out, you got to kill a week for fight week.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to fly out there doing media, all the fight week festivities that happen.
Yep.
That kills a week. So I have 8 full weeks to work, and that's plenty of time for me.
That's great, man. I mean, it's I'm excited for you.
Thanks, man.
I'm excited
for you.
Yeah, it's. I think we probably should just both go win.
That'll work.
We'll take that. So. Yeah. It was great talking with you here,
too,
man, and hopefully you guys got a little bit of insight. I'm really excited about this, just being able to sit down with another like-minded athlete that is at the top of their game, quite literally, is awesome. And there's, as you guys can see, so many similarities, even though we're competing differently in different sports. The mentality is very much the same, right? To be the best, and if you guys are wanting to set goals, you're wanting to do things yourselves, that maybe you haven't had the confidence to get into or to dive into, maybe listening to us talk a little bit can inspire you guys to go after your goals and dreams and what you want to accomplish. So anything else you want to add, brother?
Nah, don't be scared. Take a leap of faith, chase those dreams. If not you, then who?
That's it. World's Strongest Man's got to come from somewhere. I hope you all are doing great. For now, go out and be great, and we'll check you guys later.